I was very encouraged when I started looking at these meetings, readings this morning. This morning, for some reason, or it must have been last night, I didn't set the alarm properly, and so normally I have a little snooze button. So the alarm goes off, and bang, the first time it goes off, I shut the alarm down, and I snooze for as long as it goes off again. And that's kind of the way I wake up. I don't usually wake up, I get straight up after the first alarm. And this morning the alarm went off, and I was waiting for the snooze alarm to go off. And I was waiting, and I was waiting. I thought, what's going on here? And so eventually I thought, okay, something's up. And I got up and looked at the clock, and it was an hour after I should have, over an hour after I should have got up. And I was thinking, what? And I knew that Ang and Quinn were in the chapel waiting for me and they'd already been looking at the clock. They'd already been waiting 20 minutes, 25 minutes even, and more. And I was thinking, so I raced up, said morning prayer with them, and then breakfast and such. But it messed up my whole morning, lost an hour, and therefore didn't get my usual prayer, didn't get usual time I do for preparation. And I was left thinking, what a disaster, Lord. What sort of priests have you got here that kind of, anyway. So I wasn't feeling so great about myself this morning. And then when I got in to prepare the homily, I was comforted and encouraged. The book of the Hebrews, as we've been speaking about, is an encouragement to us who are going through difficulties in our faith and perhaps just difficulties in life. Speaking about Jesus and who it is. And so, again, we're being taught more about who this person is in the gospel, also being taught about who this person is that we worship. If you remember yesterday and the day before, the Hebrews was talking about the phrase, "Oh, that today you would listen to his voice, harden not your hearts, as at Meribah on that day, as on that day at Massah in the desert, when the people of God rebelled against the Lord. They rebelled in the desert. They rebelled going into the land of Canaan. They had hardened their heart against the Lord." And the encouragement in Hebrews was that we shouldn't harden our hearts, that we should not be like those people at Massah and Meribah at the Jordan, preparing for the land of Canaan. That the day of salvation is here, that we can still turn to the Lord. Let's not die through our disobedience and be lost. Today's reading speaks about the Word of God being a double-edged sword. Now, a sword, as you know, when it's used, a sword is a weapon for killing people. When a sword is used, it wounds, and the intent is usually to kill the opponent. And a double-edged sword is doubly dangerous because it's sharp on both sides. And the Word of God is being described as a double-edged sword, which pierces not only flesh, but also spirit and soul. The Lord, His Word, not only heals the flesh, and we see that in the gospel text we've been looking at over the week, as the Lord heals the sick, heals diseases, leprosy, but also heals the souls, frees us from the power of the enemy, exorcises people from demons. And we heard yesterday, more importantly, how He heals us, destroys the power of the enemy, heals us from sin. He forgives our sin. This was the new revelation we heard in Mark yesterday, and that is being expanded and deepened. Who is this? He has already taught, He's already healed the physically sick. He has healed a man and forgiven his sin, and now we see His forgiveness of sin in action, how He approaches sinners like myself. The Word of God is alive and active and cuts more finely than a double-edged sword. Do not harden your hearts. And so, we can, use the image, so I'd like you just to imagine that. The sword, if our hearts are hardened and the sword goes in, it cannot penetrate. The word of God cannot penetrate a hardened heart. The Lord is looking for hearts that are soft, that are open, that will receive, that will allow his sword to penetrate deep into us. That's what he's looking for. And the word of God will only go as far in as we would permit it. Are our hearts hardened or are they soft? The word of God is a word also of life. The sword also is a sword of life. And so in the psalm we hear that the law is perfect. So the sword, this word of God, revives the soul. It's to be trusted. It gives wisdom. The sword, as it pierces, gladdens the heart. As it enters into us, it enlightens our soul. So it brings us life. The word of God is life when we allow it to enter in and cut in, when we allow it to. But sometimes we have that fear because of our own weakness. In my case, me, this is why it was an encouragement, because as I was reading this, Hebrews was telling us, it's not as if we have a high priest incapable of feeling our weakness. Do we not all feel our weakness? And often we imagine God as distant, uncaring, unfeeling, who doesn't care about how weak we are as long as we do what he says. But he feels our weakness, because he too has been tempted in every way. We sin, he didn't. And so, Hebrews, let us be confident in approaching the throne of grace, that we might have mercy from him and find grace when we are in need of his help. When Jesus went walking beside the lake, he found Levi, the sinner, the public sinner, who perhaps could have been hardened of heart, but Jesus knew him, and Levi's heart was soft. And so when the word of God, when the word of life called, he followed. He did not lose confidence in this God, in Jesus Christ. And so much confidence he had that he brought his friends with him. Here we're seeing Jesus, who is compassionate and is merciful. Let us also take confidence in this merciful God of ours, that we shall be confident of the mercy he will show us as we approach his throne of grace.